And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to the Virtual LA WhipCon retrospective, I guess. I'm joined today with none other than Adam Winrich himself. How you doing, sir? Thank you,
Doing
thank
great.
you.
Glad to be.
And of course, I mean, this is your event. I've just been milking it for attention from other people. So I appreciate, first off, just off the bat, all that you've done to set this up. And for those that don't know, I guess I should introduce the I have my intro, I usually do. But the LA WhipCon is, of course, a competition that is held every year in LA of all sorts of whip enthusiasts. And it's a meetup and meet and greet and chatting, but it's also competition. A number of different challenges, both in cracking as well as in making. And this year we had to do a virtual competition, which Adam so graciously put together. And I had a few questions for you on how this went and how how you put it together and so forth. Um, so yeah, getting started. What was the original idea behind the LA WhipCon, and how is that translated into this virtual WhipCon?
The original idea with LA WhipCon is that I liked going to events, but since I became a full-time performer, like most of my weekends were spent performing, so I couldn't go to events to be with my friends, like whip cracking friends I
Mhm.
want to hang out with. So I was like, okay, the only way to solve this is to create my own event. And then one winter, Dakota and I went out to LA because we had a lot of whip cracking friends out in LA, and like just me showing up on a Saturday, a bunch of people, like we had 20 people or
Oh,
something, show up to hang out with us in a park. So I knew like, oh, okay, well, if we just come out to LA, I can say, hey,
mm,
everybody, it's going to be a competition now, and we've got enough people there to have an event. So so it went that first year, like, all right, we're going to keep coming back, and we'll make the live event. So I had an event to
sure,
go to, so I could hang out with my friends,
sure.
and of course with and a lot of it was inspired by the things that I liked the best out of other events I had been to. There used to be a thing called the Wild West Arts Club, which had conventions for years and years, and I was lucky to go to the last three of those. And then I've been to a few events in Texas. There used to be a whip enthusiast event in Arlington.
Mhm.
I've been to that, and then been to some events in Florida.
I think Vegas had a.
Anyway, so it made the event, and of course we couldn't do the live event this year, so um, I realized like, all right, well, we'll just make a video competition so we can at least have something going on,
Sure.
I guess. So.
Yeah, it's a small piece of what it all is, I guess, but it's something, like you said. Where did the idea of making it a competition, did that come from the other events that you went to versus just hanging out and meet up? The
Oh, sorry, you glitched
oh,
in the audio there.
yeah, I was just asking, how did the idea go from you showing up and it being 20 people to actually making a competitive event? Are you naturally a competitive person?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've set what are 30 Guinness
No,
World
that's a good
Records.
point.
So then, oh yeah, I'm not. The thing is though, like, yeah, I've been to competitions. I like going to competitions. I also like the idea of competitions. Um, and how they like just give you something to work towards as opposed to like, well, I'm going to go out every day and crack a whip with no particular like thing you're looking towards doing. So I just like competitions and I like the camaraderie of it. So um, I'd had an idea, I think, for a while, like, man, I miss going to these events that I really want to have one to go to. So it's actually to put together an event. I guess one, it helped that like I've had a reputation for a
Mhm.
while, and people know who I am, and two, I've been to several events, so I kind of have an idea of how they're supposed to go. Um, but really, for any kind of whip event, it's not that hard. You just, I think I tried to tell some other people who wanted to try to put on other whip events. The basic thing you have to do is just find a park where you want it, uh, rent that, pick the weekend, um, tell everybody about it, uh, establish the events and some rules, and get some prizes together, and then just advertise it, and hopefully people will show up. Um, so it's not that complicated. I just think the LA thing helped a lot in that one, it's LA is a nice place to be in January, and like I said, there was already a big group of people there to make it an event, even if no one came in that from far away.
Sure.
So it would be tougher for somebody to say if you're in Akron, Ohio, or Des Moines, Iowa, or something, to be like, we're going to put on a whip cracking event. You might get 5 people, but that's how some whip cracking competitions go.
Yeah, sure, sure. Just as a side point, we have a couple of people here saying they're having a hard time hearing you, or I'm super loud, one or the other. Um, I don't know if you have a headset you could plug in maybe with a mic, get a little better audio from you, Adam. All right.
Sure. Let's see. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no, it's fine. This is just a chat and hang out. So thank you guys. I appreciate letting me know. It sounds okay to me, but if it doesn't sound good to you, then it's important.
Well, this got a mic on it.
Yeah.
But let me try.
Well, let's do a step.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, you're a lot louder now. I'm
yeah.
going to turn you down.
Okay. Yeah, you sound much better.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's the nature of doing these live, right?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So the yeah, you being a competitive person and finding a place, I mean that definitely shows, putting two and two together shows how we got from there to here. I mean my personal biggest regret was of course not getting to meet all the people there. And
Right.
which is why we're doing this. And I appreciate you coming on and doing all this. Um, so is it, I mean, you just showing up, I mean, you talked about that, but is it hard to promote it to get those prizes and get some of those people to try and lure people from around the world to come to these events or participate, especially virtually?
Oh, virtually. Actually, no. I mean, I don't know. I think this event was pretty popular. I mean, we had 74 different people enter from, and we had at least someone from every inhabited continent, except Antarctica. Um, so I think the overall response from it was great for me the first time doing this. So I think I definitely feel like, oh, I got to figure out how to do this again. I'd only planned to do this as like a placeholder
Right.
for next year. Um, but certain things I see about how it went would lend itself to doing it as sort of, I would never have the try to handle this the same weekend as the live event. I'd definitely spread them out by like a month. But I could see how they could become two complementary events.
Right. You certainly would not want them to be contradictory or competing against each other to where you pull people from one and they wouldn't come to the other, for example. But I guess have to think through those logistics very carefully. Um, so, what were some of the challenging aspects of doing it virtually this year? And with this, I mean, obviously it was pretty successful, but what were some of the challenges?
Mm, well, I guess initially, see, I had uh, posted about it early because I knew the due date deadline was going to be in the middle of winter. So I thought for anyone in the northern hemisphere, I would start open it, entries in like October. So hey, if you want to go out before snow on the ground or before it's freezing, you can build your entries early. But no one did. I think I got one. The first entry I got like end of October, and then for months maybe I had like a handful of entries, and that was it. And we weren't really sure how this was going to go. And then of course, especially this whole last week of the last week that submissions were open, then things came pouring in, and then even people were filming themselves like all day Friday. Like Ryder, if you saw Ryder
Hmm.
Kisner's video, he did a performance video and single whip and double whip freestyle. He filmed all that on Friday, edited edited everything Friday, and then had it sent to me by like I don't know 7 8 p.m.
Wow, last minute. And then, of course, Johnny talking about being
Yeah,
outside freezing cold. Yeah, it's certainly not.
right, right. Yeah, definitely. There were some people with their filming situation. They were just trying to just get something in to be a part of it, which I certainly appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. We had so many good submissions too. I've just really enjoyed seeing the not just the varied talent and getting to see so many different people whip cracking, but such a different style between so many different people as well. Have you picked up
Sure.
anything or felt like you've learned anything or been exposed to new things this year?
Oh, yeah, I think if you look through my list of shout outs,
Hmm.
I think that kind of expresses some of the interesting stuff I got to watch from the videos. Like, let's see, some standouts for me be like it was a Canadian girl, Emily Quantify or
Right.
Quant, I think it's her name. She did a seasonal video sort of montage where she had filmed the same routine in summer, fall, and then winter, and then cut it together like where she'd do like a circus crack or something, and then there would be a cut, and then she'd be in a different season, and it kept cutting back and forth between the different seasons. So that was really neat. Jesus de la Hoya posted a horse training video where it's just 3 minutes of him basically demonstrating how he desensitizes his horse to whip cracks. It was just no talking. It was just him cracking the whip around his horse in different ways, walking around his horse, going up, comforting his horse. It was a real fun video to watch. Um, Garrett Lloyd posted a really great video about making a grass bullwhip in Bolivia. So I'm sure not many people have seen that. Some other just general tricks I'd never seen before. A guy in the Czech Republic did sear wheel and cracked a whip at the same time. This kid from Atlanta did fire staff and fire whip at the same time. I've never seen that before.
Whoa.
So it's cool to see the variety of stuff. Um, and I think, yeah, and if you look through the shout out list, you can see like how people were able to be individuals or differentiate themselves from everybody else, which is interesting to see.
And then, of course, our performance category, that was really varied. I saw some amazing things that were all over the place. I mean, our winner, of course, with the whole waking up and going to sleep, I mean, that was Hollywood quality, in my opinion.
For sure, yeah, he studies cinematography, and I'd seen some other videos he'd done with rope spinning that he'd made with his girlfriend.
Hmm.
And then one thing I did ask him because it's so good, I was like, "So is this something you?" I knew he did whip cracking. His dad's a well-known rope spinner. Um, that was this something he'd made previously, or is this something he just made for the competition? It would have been valid. Basically, my general rule was, hey, if you filmed it within the past year, I would accept it.
Sure.
Um, and so no, he had filmed it like the week before just for the competition and put it together. So
Awesome.
I feel like that definitely gave me
Okay.
some more points.
Yeah, that's really impressive. That because it looks like it would have taken a tremendous amount of time to put all that together, but even more so. And of course,
Sure.
son has the youngest whip cracker. I'm just gonna shout that out. So you commented him,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. It's cute.
my kids throwing snowballs at me. I enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, so what was did it make? How do I put this? With it such a varied type of submissions with lots of different styles, did it make it especially hard to judge which one would be the first, second, third?
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. I was going to talk a little bit about
Okay.
the judging, how I handled the single whip, double whip, and the performance. Um, so, and sort of the difference between what the live event is and what the video event
Okay.
became. So in the live event, we have required cracks, and then we tell you to do your freestyle, and we're just listening for missed cracks. We aren't really exactly watching. We are watching what you technically do, but we aren't counting tosses. We aren't counting somersaults. We're just listening for missed cracks, and if you miss a few, like probably two or three, you're probably out of the running for the first three
Hmm.
places. But then so that's kind of how the single whip and double whip work. And then if we have, say, two or three people that were really close, then we have a 20-second sudden death whip off where each person they've already done their minute. So then they come back out and they each get 20 seconds to go nuts. And that really, really helps separate people out. Some people handle that pressure better than
Sure.
others. And it's really fun to watch in the live event and makes it easier to split stuff. So with the single whip in particular, I mean, there's a whole lot of people that can do the four corners in one
Hmm.
hand. So I sort of had to go like, all right, number one, can you do all the required cracks? And then kind of number two, looking at just what's your general energy and focus level. Like, are you out there like going for it, or you're like, yeah, I'm gonna crack a whip. Maybe I'll do this crack here, and maybe this other one over here. Or do you know like you go out with like, I'm getting it, and then I would look at, yeah, what were the most technical cracks you did. Like Justin Bareski was a good example where right off the bat he did arrowhead in four corners in his left hand, and then did arrowhead in four corners in his right hand. So that was good. Also, Ian Cameron had a very good variety of cracks that he performed in his routine, so I really liked that. And then from there, again, just looking at the cracks made it hard to differentiate. So then I also had to look at like what other non-cracking elements did you include in your routine? Like, did you include an interesting toss or something really dynamic that made it pop on the video? Because remember, like I watched all these on my phone, I couldn't see them live. So it's basically, could you make a video that pops with whatever techniques you added, like your tosses? So in particular, that's why, like I'd say Todd Rex won. Like one, his energy level was high.
Absolutely.
He did do the four corners, cracks was good, but what put him over the top was just his energy and the two like sort of high toss, forward roll and catch, because he did that twice.
Right.
So
One
that kind of
experience.
to me put him over the top.
Absolutely.
And you also have to understand with some of these people, uh, I've seen them before, so I
Mhm.
know what they can do. So for someone that I've seen many times, if they can come out and surprise me, then I'm more likely to, ooh, he did something different. All right, that's good. That gets a little bit more points in my book.
Absolutely. And that's a really good breakdown because I know we've talked about it on some of the other interviews on how it seemed. I guess if we could have put it together, it would have been something similar. But I like the idea that you were looking for something else that made that dynamic pop. Um, no pun intended, popping with the whips. But the so like tosses and releases and all, is that, I don't want to say worth more points per se. It's just adding to the dynamic part of the video, or is it something that you actually look for? So if there was lots of tosses with very few cracks, could it potentially score the same as someone that cracked a lot of technical things?
Oh, hmm. No, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's a whip cracking competition. You had to establish, oh, you are a whip cracker. It's more like number one, establish you do know how to crack the whip, and then number two, can you add some other element of interest,
Right.
whether it like was something acrobatic or something contortionist oriented or interesting
Right.
toss. Because I mean, some people did some tosses that were like watching paint dry. But I'm glad they incorporated them and they're working on them. So just doing a toss by itself doesn't boom make the video pop. Um, like some tosses, like I've tried myself, and I can understand like, oh, that's difficult. This probably took this person like several takes to try to get
Sure.
a 1 minute where they were able to pull off this toss, and this.
When when you're thinking back over it, is there something that was especially emotional or moving? A lot, like you said, a lot of these are like watching paint dry. If you've seen, you saw how many videos was it? Like 100 and something total submissions with almost that many people.
Don't say anything
But
bad about anybody.
yeah, don't say anything bad about anything. Hi, Dakota.
What?
We hear you. But
Oh,
um,
um,
but yeah, is there something emotionally moving that you thought was special, whether or not they scored well otherwise? Um,
hmm. I guess for me, I felt mostly connected to that video that Jesus De La Hoya posted of him training the horse, just because it was, and also my wife's video of her with Baby Yoda. And that was a very emotional video
I'm
to
still
watch.
waiting for Grogu's contact information. I'm saying. No, that was great. I loved her video too. It was very entertaining. Um, so yeah, we talked a little bit about yeah, the scoring and and the future of this. That was one of my specific ones. I was going to ask was
Yeah,
I haven't been able to make it out to LA, believe it or not. All these
yeah,
people I'm talking to, I haven't been able to make it out there yet. And this has been
yeah,
wonderful for me to be able to see so much of this online, not just waiting until the week after and hope somebody uploaded their camera roll somewhere I can go and
yeah,
look, see what all happens. So yeah, this has been really especially exciting for me that had to be distance last year. So
yeah,
very exciting. Um, let's see. We've got several people here in the chat. So I just want to say hi to everyone. We've got 11 people there. I did have you have a lot of videos on YouTube and training and teaching of different tricks as well as
Yeah.
sharing, just how you do stuff, but also just showing off the things you can do. What is a good way for someone to go to gain that independence with two hands? This is something I've talked about with a number of people, and it's been a fun topic. So independence with two hands. How do you go about getting there?
Oh, well, first you have to make sure you put in extra effort with your non-dominant hand, just with one whip,
Mm,
just to get that up to snuff. It will never work out if you only crack whips like with your dominant hand and then decide, well, now I'm going to go two whips, and then you pick them both up and then you go to work. That doesn't work. Like I think I've heard this about with golf, is always be training your weaknesses. Your strengths will always be strengths no matter what, but you got to pick out what your weaknesses are and then always be working on them. So, or whatever you think your weaknesses are that you want to work on. So like for me, say working on four corners tricks, I know I'm going to need each hand to be equally adept at doing the four corners. And I'm right-handed, so that means when I go out every day, when I'm working four corner stuff, like the first thing that gets a good workout is like a lot of four corner stuff in my left hand to make sure it's going to be at least as strong as the other.
okay, and and that's strong, not just physically. I assume you're talking about like getting that muscle memory down as well.
All right, yeah, it's a combination of sort of little strength, endurance, technique, kind of thing.
Yeah. Danny was talking about how he actually thinks for him to continue to get better, he's going to have to start hitting the gym. That notices that all the better ones, yourself included, are kind of built. So is that you think that's an actual
Oh,
a thing?
oh yeah. I guess it depends what you work on. So like if I'm working on four corner stuff and I want to be better with like a set of 6 foot whips, those are heavy. And then so yeah, usually like especially when I'm doing shows like on the weekends, I know I have to lift weights at least 1 or 2 times during the week just to feel like I've got, feel good about doing my shows. Otherwise, I go out there and I just feel sort of weak and sloppy, and I don't like it. So definitely, weight training helps. Um, and I know some Australian whip crackers would do swimming to do strength. But yeah, for me, weight. I don't have a place to go swimming, so I do
Gotcha,
weight
gotcha.
training.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I I heard an interview. I mentioned this in Justin's interview as well about how Tiger Woods would spend a lot of time working on his putting specifically because that was something that he felt he was weak in. He would spend at least an
Yep,
hour a day doing just the thing he was weak in, but also that his physical fitness overall gave him that tiniest bit of edge over someone that may not be quite as fit. So maybe that's something we can
sure.
all work from or learn from.
Well, definitely, if you watch the videos, I would say if you compare, say, like Danny's become a very strong whip cracker. In my recollection of it is if you say would compare his two-handed whip cracking video to like Corey McCoy's video, second place video, is definitely Danny came out. You just see he's a much stronger whip cracker. Like I think you can hear the cracks better, and you can
Mm,
just see he's just coming out of a little bit more power. Even though I think they're using about the same size whip.
okay. Do you think that, especially with this virtual one, the way you're hearing it, that audio is something that people should pay more attention to? Was there ever any problems with that?
Yeah, and that well, there was one submission where like the audio was deactivated or something for whatever reason on one person's video. So all I could do was just like I could watch the motion of the whip and kind of see what they were doing and could sort of look at it and kind of tell if they were hitting cracks.
Hmm.
The only few things about people's videos. One, some people weren't framed very well, so it's like you kind of when you're framing it, like whatever the length of the whip is, you want to make sure that it basically the cracker goes from edge to edge of the frame. Like you don't want to like have your whip action going out here where you're like 50 feet away. You want to figure out whatever distance you need to stand away, just so you barely capture the action, so you can really see what's happening. And then make sure that your background contrasts with whatever color your whips are. So Danny did a good job of that. Like he had a gray sky against his dark whips, so you could really see what was happening. And then at the best, Ian Cameron this video I think would be a good example where you could tell he had trees behind him. So I think trees or bushes, if you can be surrounded by them, do the best to like capture all the sound and push it towards your phone's
Sure.
microphone. So that's really important in getting good sound in a video. So a few people, like I'd say Justin Boreski's two-handed whip video would be a good example for me, where you could see he's out in the wide open in a park. And so that's going to make it tough for real good sound of the cracks to get pushed back into his camera
Mm-hmm.
and get recorded. Or because I guess another point I should make is that just like say if you're the whip cracker, mostly what you hear is the reflection of the crack off of something, like off a building, off a tree. It's very rare, like only if you're doing like a coachman's crack next to your head that you're getting the direct crack boom right into your ear. And I believe your phone is the same way, whereas like direct cracks to the phone's microphone will cut out. And I could hear that happening in Corey McCoy's video, but that also let me know that like, oh, he's getting good cracks.
Sure.
If instead of a whoosh, 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 I'm hearing pump, 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 I can hear that at least he's doing it well enough that he's cutting off the microphone. But ideally, you'd want to be surrounded in bushes that give your phones or whatever you're recording with sort of a secondary reflection of the crack, and that will turn out as better audio.
Okay. I've noticed most of my videos I do in between. We have an empty lot between myself and my neighbor, and I do get some strange echoes. But if I crack toward the street, away from the two houses, it sounds very different on the video than if it's going bouncing back and forth between the two buildings.
Sure.
Obviously, and yeah, sometimes it cuts out, and other times it just sounds really anemic. Even though to me, they all kind of sounded the same.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a lot of really good tips, and hopefully everyone can take that to heart and maybe do another take in another spot if that's necessary.
Yeah, I think definitely trying to figure out like how to do this next year, um, to try to figure out how can I streamline it, make it easier, adjust some things. Definitely I would sort of adjust the rules a little bit to give people a better idea of what I'm looking for now that I've done it and I can see what does translate into a video. And I would give a list of recommendations of like how to film yourself um, to get the best
Yeah,
video.
yeah, because I mean, like you said, the opposite of not be of being too far away, be too close. If you can't see what all the whip is doing, I mean, that's going to be hard to
Yeah, I
judge
don't
as
think.
well.
Yeah, at least that didn't have. No one was too close. Just a couple
Okay,
people were too
well
far away.
that's good to hear. Maybe that's common sense. um, I don't remember seeing it in your list. Was there anything funny that you remember? Oh well, I mean, you mentioned the guys walking behind. That was actually pretty funny. But
Oh, mm,
I mean, other than
let's
Dakota,
see. I suppose for funny. Well, other than, I would say no, actually for comedy, I would say Dakota's is probably the best comedy video that was entered, just because it had the clearest concept and what best executed comedic concept in a video. Aaron Bong did submit a video for the performance category
oh, was that
where
the
he did for the highest whip toss.
how many cracks in 15 seconds? It was three.
Or number of tosses in 15
Yeah, number of
seconds.
tosses. Yeah, my wife and I were rolling on that one. That was hilarious.
Thanks, good one. A little bit, I would just say I wasn't quite. I mean, it was obviously funny. I wasn't quite sure how to take it because it felt like one, he was making fun of the 15-second whip toss challenge, which was just something fun to do. It wasn't even a serious competition. And then two, that's all he wanted to submit it for the performance category when he is a performer. So I know he's capable of doing more. So I was like, this is good, Aaron, but you have more than this. Like I did try to pressure him to like, why don't you put together a cool like whip juggling video where you like do 3 whips and then do 4 whips because that looks great and that's not something that technically anyone else is going to
Right.
do. But he didn't want to do that.
No, I mean it's I guess his art style, and it's your competition, right? So, so let's see. I actually have a couple questions here from Keith who messaged me. So if you could pick a single whip maker, not of that have participated in previous cons or have been in this one, but of maybe of any of them you've ever touched, do you have a single favorite?
Oh, sorry, single favorite whip?
Yeah, whip maker. Yeah.
Whip maker.
Sorry, we're kind of all over the place here with these
No,
topics, but
no. I think maybe that's the hard part of my personality is like I'm not always good at like something differentiating some things. Some things I'll look at it like we've got this one, this one, this one, this one. All right, I like them all for different reasons, and I'm not going to bother picking a favorite. I was like, this one's good for this one's good for this one's good for that, and that's where I stop. I don't be like, ooh, this one's the absolute favorite.
Sure, sure. Uh, What is it? And maybe you've been asked this on when you've been on TV shows and stuff, but what is it about whips? What I mean, I can't answer it for myself, obviously, but what is it that gets you excited about whips these days? I'm sure one starting is one way, but today, what is it that you're excited about?
Oh, these days, the, probably mostly what gets me out there every day is I'm trying to learn how to juggle three whips. Because I think other people had done it before Aaron Bong did it, and then no one else has really mastered Aaron's style yet. But like Aaron's done it, and I've seen other people in Europe doing it. So I can see it's like gaining momentum is something. Oh, you guys should do it. So it's sort of one of those things. I've had this happen to me with watching other tricks. Like if I see only one person do it, I'm like, oh, it's their trick. And then as soon as you see the second person do it, you're like, all right, this is the way the world's going. I got to catch up and try to learn
Is
it.
that more of a personal, like just keeping yourself challenged with the thing, with the current in style thing, or is this more of a need to stay professionally relevant? So, I mean, since you are a entertainer, like,
Oh, well, I mean, see, professionally relevant. I guess the interesting thing doing Renaissance fairs is that, well, the crowds do like it if you can come up with new material, and that can be important. But it's also you can, as long as you're doing a solid show, you can keep doing that show for years, and you'll be fine. I suppose in some part, I mean, every now and then I do get a little bit of a bug. My competitive nature is like, oh, I'm not relevant anymore. I used to feel like I was like really somebody, and now I'm like falling behind. And that's just a little feeling I get in the back of my head. I'm like, oh, I got to work on something now, and like so I can feel, oh, I got something. Mostly, I would say with the whip juggling, is like there's different ways to look at whip cracking, and I would say I look at someone like maybe Todd or Justin, where they've decided that okay, they're going to focus on either like whip tossing and the uh, what I say,
mhm,
contact whipping, where like you bounce the whip off your body, different stuff. So they'll focus on that, and they'll play around with coming up with a bunch of different moves that they can pull off, and that's how they express themselves.
right,
And I wasn't always into that. I guess I was always looking at like, I mean, I sort of when I started studying Australian whip cracking, I thought, oh, I should make it a goal to learn every two-handed routine there ever was. Like that should be the goal. Um, and then it kind of gets simplified to if you're going to compete in Australia, you try to get together the best set of 10 tricks and 1 minute freestyle that you can do. So you keep trying to like replace weaker tricks with stronger ones as you work through it. And
hmm,
for me, more my idea was is that I'm getting older. I sort of pared that down to be like, all right, I feel like there's a few big tricks out there where if you can do it, it's a real feather in your cap. So I looked at, for me, the staggered four corners maybe doesn't mean that much to other people, but it meant a lot to me. So I made that a thing that I worked on for a long time. And now I pretty much got the hang of it. So if I decide I want to do it, I know what whips will do it. I pick them up and I can do the trick. So when I've done that, like, well, I liked having this thing to go and work on and feel like it was a good challenge. So the next one to move to, I felt was whip juggling because I feel like that's also another big, it's a big dynamic shift. Also, you go from one whip, two whip. Can you do three whips? Well, that's whip juggling.
right. Uh, so, do you feel that with that competitive nature and that drive to do the next thing, is there a competition that you are shooting for? Are you going to want to go to Australia? Are you hoping someone else puts on a the New York WhipCon and you go there to compete? Or
Oh, well, just see, Justin Bareski has talked about trying to put on a whip competition in Canada. And of course, if possible, I'd like to go. Um, but actually, I guess right now I don't really have any plans to try to go any competitions that I'd be working towards, just because with my Renaissance Fair schedule in a
mm,
normal year, usually I'm always working when the competition would be going on. So that's challenging. And also, I'm a little bit older. It's like I've done competitions, and the last competition I did is the guys at Western Stage Props put on a Western Skills Convention a couple of years ago now, in Vegas, and I went. And because I wasn't there trying to help put it on, and I wasn't trying to run it, I was just there as a person. I was like, oh, I'm going to compete. And it actually wasn't. I mean, I did compete in the rope spinning, which isn't my specialty, and I won a couple things, so that felt good. But when it come to doing the whip cracking, and I won a couple things, I was like, oh, I think these other people would have been happier if I hadn't done it, and they would have won something. Like I didn't need to win something. It would have been an overall better experience if like these other people had gone away, felt the and have felt like uplifted by winning something.
So that kind of leads me to another question I had here about the future of building the community. And it sounds like what you're talking about there. Like, what is the overall benefit of not just of being a nice guy and letting someone else win? Um, there's no need to stomp the little kids in the room, right? Not, oh, no offense to anyone that was there competing against you, obviously. But what is it that is a benefit for when you're growing these communities? Is it having local events, perhaps, or is it having these big events and having prizes? Like, if would two events, would one big event in LA, or two big events, one Canada, one in LA, or would it be better to have one every couple of months in our hometowns all around the world? Have any thoughts on that?
They sort of have that in Australia. It's something that's hard to do. In Australia, they have state titles, and then they have their national competition, and they also have it as a rule that in at least the I think it's AWPA is that if you want to compete in the national competition, you have to have competed in a state competition. Um, and that's something they did not so much to drive up the quality of the whip crackers in the national competition, but it was a hope that it would drive up attendance at the state competitions.
Okay. Well, very cool. Do you think so? If there was more people at the state competitions, how how do you think that helps, or does it? Is it they were just trying to support each other?
Uh, I think they just wanted bigger events. I could see the hard part being that like as far as like putting on events, like putting on the one in LA is fun because like so many people show up now and like people come from around the world, especially after Peter Thorndike started doing the whip
Hmm.
making portion of the competition. That really encouraged other people like Johnny Ogren to come, and Blake Gorey came out. So definitely the combining the whip making helped a lot, and then so it makes it a big fun event,
Hmm.
and I think so, and makes it exciting. And I think the harder part with like smaller events, like regional events, is like um, it's not quite as thrilling, and maybe whoever's putting on is a little bit more drudgery from year after year. All right, the same five people are going to show up. I'm going to get some prizes. It might feel like it's a law of diminishing returns. Like this isn't worth the effort that I'm putting in. Like I know Dan Borton had told me he tried doing like regular whip workshops in the park, I think just for
Hmm.
free or something, and um, then some same couple people would show up maybe, or some people would show up and like want a one whip lesson, like, well, I cracked a whip, and then leave and never come back. So you find it, sort of found it frustrating, and never really felt like it was going anywhere. I do think adding the competition element helps in that if you get someone interested in whips, at least the idea of a competition gives them some very specific things to focus on.
Sure.
And it's part of the reason why with the freestyle competitions, I had to have the required cracks. So that way it gives beginners something very distinct to focus on. Say, if you can't quite do the volley, well, this competition will give you a reason to focus on that and learn it, as opposed to like, well, there's so many different cracks. What am I going to do?
Right. No, that's a really good idea. And actually, when I was out cracking with my wife the other day, that was one of the things we were talking about, is that she just had never really worked on her volleys much, and it was kind of giving her a little
Mm,
motivation to do that. So very cool.
yeah.
And it also, my son was, who's 8, as I mentioned earlier, he's like, no, I'm just doing this one, and we'll put it in the other category. That's all he
Oh,
can do is the cattle ones.
that
But
was a cute video.
thank you. I'm very proud of him.
Yeah.
But well, that's very cool. Yeah, I've got a small group of friends that I meet with for another reason, and I always drag them out in the yard with a pile of whips afterwards,
Yeah.
and we just stand around, and it's always a lot of fun. And I've wished there was more of that to get, and it's just been so cool to see something like this be so popular. And how can you bring that down to the local level level, and more often than once a year also. So
Right. It's pretty much just like well, the Western Arts Club, the Wild West Arts Club used to have regional events. I'm trying to think what they have. I went to a few of them. They had there was the main one was in Vegas that I never went to, and then it moved to Tulsa. No, Claremore, Oklahoma. It moved to Claremore for 3 years that I went, and that was their national one, and people came from around the world. And then they had regional ones. They had one in Ohio put on by Jerry Deere. They had one in Florida put on by Gordy Peer. They had one in Texas, Claiborne, Texas, put on by uh, Mark. Oh, shoot, spacing on the name. He'd be mad at me. Um,
come to
and
you say it.
But anyway, so there were several regional events. There was also one in Minnesota. So people could go to the national one and maybe like, ooh, well, this was a lot of fun. I want to go to another one of these. Oh, well, here's this other smaller one that's coming up. And part of that was helped by the fact that people like Jerry Deere and Gordy Peer are like good at organizing and putting events together and enjoy having the events and having the people around. So you
Sure.
kind of need that push. And also Jerry Deere and Gordy, certain among their circles, like have a good reputation, so that helped. I mean, that's probably one of the things that helped with me putting on the LA whip convention and having it be successful is that I've done so much in my whip career. Like I had a reputation in the community that preceded it, so that would get more people. And oh, so and so is going to be there. Well, that's interesting. So in some ways, that would help for anyone that wants to put on a regional event. Is like if you are a whip cracker, like who has a reputation, and you would like to uh, sort of capitalize on it in a way to help make an event, I think that helps a lot. That's probably one of the things that helps with the
Hmm.
LA Whip convention is that oh, this guy will be there, this guy will be there, this guy will be there. It's like, well, I'm gonna go. You kind of need that sort of
Sure.
thing, and that's yeah.
So let's see. If I get on the Tonight Show and then try to create a local competition, it would be better. So no, I'm joking.
Well, I'm saying you can totally. I mean, however, if you want to get some tips later on how to put together a competition, I can
No,
totally help you with that.
yeah, and it's not just. I mean, not just for me. I mean, I do want to do something like that, and I'll certainly take you up on that. But there's multiple people I've talked to that it's they're just the common. I'm the only whip cracker I know. I
Yeah,
have to, I have to talk to someone online or go to LA. That's the only outlet they have.
right.
Um, yeah. So I mean, there used to be these events around. So it sounds like maybe the Western arts might be a better way to call it then, and try to
No,
incorporate some of these others.
well, the thing is, so, sort of what interesting happened is that so yeah, there was the Wild West Arts Club, and they covered knife throwing, rope
Hmm.
spinning, whip cracking, and gun spinning, and sometimes they had like some trick riding, horse stuff related to that. But those four main things that they covered. And now knife throwing is huge. Knife throwing, I've been to a few knife throwing competitions and have competed. So knife throwing is definitely bigger than whip cracking for sure, and better organized. Like in Canada alone, they have several different clubs for knife throwing, like just in like the Toronto area,
Wow.
um, of people that get together and like train regularly, like once a week or during the summer. Hey, we're going out to the range on this night, and they go out and they train together, and then they have their little fun like monthly competitions or something. So this knife throwing is pretty serious.
Huh.
And then
I had no
the
idea.
thing, and then yeah, that's sort of the interesting thing. Like it helps from my perspective that I've been to other events of small sports like knife throwing, so I can see, oh, here's how these guys do it, and I can see, oh, they are more important than whip cracking. Like even I'm trying to learn unicycle, and I haven't been to like a unicycle club, but I understand that many large universities have a unicycle club, or probably any major metropolitan area has a unicycle club of people that meet regularly just to do unicycle.
Wow. I'm learning so much. That's really cool. You're really coming along on your unicycle. It's amazing. Just in the course of a year. Wow. Was-
Yeah, I think it helped. After the last Renaissance Fair in north of Houston ended, like then I was all right. I'm just going to mostly focus on either unicycle or whip juggling. So that focus time really helped.
Yeah, very cool. We actually have a couple questions here from some viewers here. We've got Danny mentioned from our conversation earlier about the exercise and all. Right after my interview, I realized that I forgot to mention doing volley in one hand and anything else in the other hand to help build hand-to-hand coordination. That sounds like a really
Oh
good
yeah,
tip. Just
yeah,
kind of
for
let
sure.
it play automatically and try and focus on the other thing.
Yeah.
Justin Beretsky says, Adam, you do a ton of work to support and grow our community, and we all really appreciate it. What are some things that you think the rest of us can do to help grow and encourage the WHIP community too? So not just creating a local event here, but each of the WHIP crackers out there. Is there anything?
Sure. Well, I guess I thought about this. Like, one, yeah, if you think you can put on a little regional event, that would be great. Um, Although otherwise, I was sort of thinking like the next easy thing to do would be like a beginner whipcracker focused video competition. That's just like a monthly thing. So my idea was is that say, and maybe somebody will try this and we'll find out if it works or not. The idea was, say you go online, you announce, say like this is the September beginner whipcracker competition, and you announce it in the middle of August, and then everyone record yourself in September, and you have until the last day of September to submit your video. And you could make your video whatever you want, but the one whip 1 minute freestyle would be just fine to do that. And that way, the beginner whipcrackers would have something to focus on, and then it'd be a limited time span that they had to compete, and then they could post all their videos and watch other people. And I think having more beginner focused competitions would be a way to grow the sport. And it's more among themselves. Like one thing I was thinking with, if we do the video competition
Mm-hmm.
next year, and I feel like it was popular enough that I should figure out how to do it, is that it'd be totally possible to have a beginner category where the only requirement is that you've never won an award or a place in another whip cracking competition. That's sort of how they did it in. I've competed in whip making competitions in Australia, and they have like the open, which anybody can enter, and then they had the novice, or basically beginner, which basically means you could enter the open if you want, but as long as you had never won an award in the open, like taken third or second or first, you could enter in the novice. But once you've won something in the novice, you can't enter it anymore. Once you've won it, you've got to go into the open.
That's a great idea. And there have been other people I've talked to. I've tried to get some beginners for these interviews as well. I was curious about some of their thoughts on this for this very reason, right? That, I mean, when you see some of the entries from some of the people who came in first, it's very intimidating.
Yes, yes, sure.
I mean, I've been cracking whips for several years, and I'm still definitely in that beginner category myself. Just getting into double-handed stuff. So yeah, that would be a great idea. Whether or not it's part of the LA one or yeah, a local one, that would be a lot of fun. Um,
Well, it could be
yeah.
something that, like, and say if Justin wants to do it, like obviously Justin had mentioned something about doing a video competition before, and I said like, man, I do not have a monopoly, definitely not on video competitions, and definitely not on conventions, or so it's I think a beginner little whip, like even in the knife throwing. Here's another example. There's this guy Rick Lemberg, who he does. He's got little video competitions going on almost all the time. It's like something based on targeting, like you have to stick, I don't know, like 10 knives in some little target or something. But anyway, the competitors can keep submitting different videos as they get better shot videos of whatever you're supposed to compete in. They can keep submitting it until the deadline, and then he mails out the prizes. And he's mailed stuff to, it's knife throwing is really big in, I forget if it was Indonesia or Thailand, somewhere in
Wow.
Southeast Asia, where it's like he'll have a competition, and then he has prizes, not tons of knives he enters as prizes, and then ships them off to him. Um, so it's definitely something to give them something to work on. So that would be something that anybody wanted to take that on for, like try it a couple of times. You just get
Hmm.
some prizes together, like maybe one whip and a couple other whip related things. It'd be like, here's the prizes, here's the rules, here's when you have to have your video by, and then maybe also you have to determine what medium you want it on. That was a little bit challenging here. I told people they could post it in a variety of places, and that made it a little bit difficult, especially when it the competition was over and people were like, "I want to see all the videos." And it's like, man, I have
Yeah.
to watch. I watch all the videos. I don't need to watch them again. Some of them I rewatched, but um, than to try to get all the different videos from all the different places. Some were private, some were unlisted, some were on a Google Drive, some were just, the file was just emailed to me. So that made it tougher. So you'd want to make it simpler where like, all right, everything must be on YouTube. It doesn't have to be listed, but I need to be able to see it on YouTube to make it simpler.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a really great tip. And yeah, I saw that thread on whichever page it was about everyone trying to get them all together to make a compilation video for this year even. And I hope whoever was working on that definitely can do that. I'm very excited to see that as well. It's probably going to be very long, but it would be really cool to see. We've got a couple other comments here. Paul Nolan commented as shout out to Todd Rex for making the medals every year. I didn't know he did that.
Yes, Todd. Yeah, I should have done that. Todd doesn't have them done. I'll go on the event page after this is done and give a shout out to Todd. He's working on them now, and then he's whenever they're done, he'll ship them out.
How exciting! And so he's the belt buckle was last year. That was by Jason. What's his name? Jason Buckles, right? Or
Jackson? I think it's Jackson Buckles.
Jackson Buckles, and the one that does the engraving for the ferals and stuff, and which is
same guy.
Yeah. But Todd has been doing the medals. I didn't know that. That's really cool. He's multi-talented.
Yeah. Well, that's what Todd does. Like Todd does like professional sculpting, like for special effects stuff in Hollywood.
Cool is that?
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to him about that. I'm trying to get him scheduled for this week, so hopefully we can have a chat. Isaac said he'd love to try to work on organizing a beginner competition, and maybe it could be a chain of whip cracks each month. Yeah, come up with some ideas. That's a great idea.
Oh, it reminds me. I don't know how this will work in a video, but so there was one rope spinning competition I was in Florida, and how it worked is you got lined up all the competitors, and then all right, everybody do this one trick. You do it all the way down, and then all right, now everybody do that first trick. Now here's a second trick you have to add to it. Everybody would go all the way down. All right, now add the second trick. So everyone tries to do them too. And then if you got the order wrong or screwed it up, then you're out. So we just keep going through the line, adding a trick every time. And I did win one year, and I think it only got up to like 7 or 8 tricks. Like we got to one time, the tricks got to a certain point where one guy, well, after I do this, I always do this other thing, but that wasn't what he was supposed to do. So he was out. And then it was funny. It was down to me and one other guy. And they were like, now here's the last trick you got to add. And like, he barely got it. And then, so the guy who was calling out the trick said like, all right, that last trick, just do it twice. and then the guy was out.
Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations. That sounds exciting.
So yeah, I would say probably before I really started nailing the 4 corners, getting on that process, it was really frustrating for me. So I spent a lot of time on rope spinning to try to have something I could work on new where I felt like I was actually like improving or had somewhere to go.
Right. Yeah. My practice involves hitting myself in the face mostly with 4 corners. So it's not, doesn't show off very much. Let's see. Shannon Cassidy says it would be neat to do a certain combo, and that's the month's thing to practice. So
sure.
Yeah. It might even, Shannon, you can email any of these amazing whip crackers on here for ideas as well. Maybe we can do something instead of the 10 whip challenge or whatever. We could do just a string of stuff for beginners.
Yeah, it's funny. The 10 whip challenge is more along the lines of the whip toss challenge, where it's like, the whip toss challenge, you could make that a competition. It's just number of tosses. The 10 whip challenge isn't really a competition. One thing I thought about, but I wouldn't know how to video it, is in one of my YouTube videos, I talk about like cutting pasta, like most cuts off of a bunch of 4 pieces of spaghetti or whatever, is that if you could set it up so like your pasta is like right in front of the camera so it can clearly be seen, that could be a thing where like, all right, who got the most pasta cuts? And then if you just keep filming yourself for that month and make sure you get your submission in, and then everybody, if you get a better number, say if you go from 14 to 15, then you send in your 15 cut video, and at the end they see who got the most.
Could be really fun. I mean, as long as nobody like comes up with scissors in between each cut.
Right. There'd be a place for comedy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, to what Shannon was saying, for like building the community, even if it wasn't a competition, just a here's just a monthly challenge. Like we're getting outside and like you said, you were working on rope spinning while you were unable to actually do the thing you were practicing. That it would be something fun, just especially for beginners to string together a couple of things. Um,
Sure. I guess the one thing, I guess not everybody, like I know, like say Aaron Bong, for example, like doesn't really like competitions. So it was part of the reason why he didn't put more effort into the performance video, um, even though he certainly challenges himself and does some amazing tricks. So I know not everyone's into competition. I guess I like them for personal growth, um, just because like it gives you a specific task to then try to improve on. And I mean, I could see like here's your monthly combo, um, but it's like there's no consequences, there's no reward if you get it right,
True.
and there's no consequences if you get it wrong. I think there's something about um, perhaps I don't know, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat is like you get the thrill of victory, like, ooh, I won this thing. I'm good at this thing. I'm going to do this some more. And then you've got like you saw what the prize was, and you want to do that. Or if you don't win it, I've seen some people who are like, well, I want to get that prize. It gives you need that brass ring,
Sure.
I think, to chase.
Yeah.
And I think that's different than like, here's your monthly recommended thing. You can do it if you want, man. It's a little too hippy dippy ish for me.
No, I could see that. I mean, there is a, and I was talking actually to Justin about that, and with a double whip, and I was trying to pick the next thing I was going to focus on. That's how I do it. Is I look around for something just beyond my reach of right now, and trying to do something slightly harder. There's so many I
It's
can't do.
important.
Yeah, and he has a wonderful list of single whip and double whip tricks on his website on Canada Whips, and I was looking through them last night, and there are a lot he has listed, and
Mm,
it in its own way it was a little bit overwhelming. So I need
sure.
to look, watch through these 30, which I mean, of course, I could stop after the first one and just work my way down the list, I suppose. But
Mm.
yeah, if there was I don't know how what do I do next? How do I get better? Everybody's different,
Oh,
perhaps.
well, that would be easy. That's sort of um, like I suppose one reason I mean I post so many videos of myself just practicing. One is just nice to keep a record of like what I'm working on and being like, all right. And sometimes you just challenge yourself more when the camera's rolling. All right, I want this to be good. It just makes you push yourself a little bit harder
Right.
than you normally would. Um, but I mean, I think a lot of people could benefit from, say, if they want to know what's the next thing to work on, how do I get better, is like just post if you're on Facebook, just post videos in the groups of you doing stuff, and you just put yourself out there and ask like, I'm doing this and this. What's the next thing? And then I mean, there's people like Justin on there. That's a lot that's commenting. Is a great resource and will comment on videos. Oh well, you did this and this. Well, the next logical step is this. Um, and I mean, it's sort of the same thing with whip makers. Like if people want feedback, it's a little bit hard if you can't crack their whip, but usually a whip maker can look at someone
Yeah.
else's work. Oh, you're doing this. Well, you maybe your next thing is to try this.
Exactly.
So I would say for people that want to know, like, what do I do next? I mean, you can ask me for feedback on the video you submitted if you want, but I mean, it's also great. You just post your video, and there's tons of people out there that can give you
Yeah, that
feedback in the whip cracking groups.
that's a really great tip, and I think everyone should certainly take that to heart. I did want to ask you a little bit about whip making as well. I realize it's a little bit slightly different topic, and we are coming up on the hour mark here, and want to be respectful of your time. Do you have a few more minutes for me? All
Sure.
right, thank you. So, like I've talked to with Nick and some of the other whip makers, this year, obviously, that's for me at least one of the big things that is missing from this year's LA WhipCon, right? Is we don't get to see everyone's amazing whips. We don't get to handle these great whips. We don't get to talk to these amazing whip makers. Um, do you feel like there's any way that we could do a annual event virtually to help whip makers? And if so, what would that be?
Oh, I talked to people when I decided I was going to do the video competition. I did chat with Peter Thorndike a little bit about how would we do an online whip making competition. And we never got around to doing something. I didn't want to take it on because I felt I would be busy enough doing the video whip cracking part. And then I think Peter was kind of busy, so he didn't feel like taking it on. But sort of some ideas we threw around is like it's more an online thing. It would become just a whip picture competition,
Right.
and then to make it a little bit more fair, we would just limit it to like the most it can be is like 16 plat. Like whatever you make, it can't like it's got to be from say 6 to 8 feet, 16 plat, and then you just send in the best picture of it, and that's what it is. And it would sort of in some ways end up being a little bit like how the performance competition came out, is that like obviously Will Fitzpatrick's video was shot
Yeah.
the best of anything and the most
Cinematic.
had the best cinematography. It was
Yeah.
most cinematic. Um, so that means that somebody who's a really like someone who could make like a brilliant whip would be a crap photographer, and someone who can make a pretty good whip but be an amazing
Mm,
photographer. You get the better whip
right.
picture. And so we sort of thought about that, and then we were like,
Right.
um, we didn't do it.
When I talked to Evan Fava, I don't know if you watched that interview, he was saying something similar
Mm-hmm.
about how in Australia the the aesthetics are at most half your score. The actual
Yeah,
use is the other half. And that's obviously something that would not be able to be judged in a competition itself. Um,
right.
but so if you leave the competition side of it out, obviously that takes some of the drive and some of the draw away. But is there a way that we could still continue to build the community and both get some of these whip makers to share some knowledge as well as help some newer whip makers learn some things as well, just as a tangential add-on to this competition. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't know. Maybe this interview is what it is, right? I talked to Evan Fava, I talked to Nick, I talked to Johnny.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, certainly that would help us like posting interviews because I don't think probably anyone. I've seen this done like being in COVID times. I haven't done much of online Zoom interviews or anything with whip cracking stuff, but I've seen it done in the harmonica world because I also play harmonica, so I'm into that. So um, I've seen a lot of great interviews that sort of help people get something to watch. Uh, so yeah, I could see like just doing the interviews you did. I mean, gives people something to watch. I guess the hard part, I suppose, I found with whips is that I mean, yeah, you do have some people that can learn just through the internet and watch on a phone. Like Danny Shaw is a great example, where like he was able to learn, and both him and sort of before him there was Leo
Mm,
Maxwell, who probably won the first belt buckle I think we had for the World Championship. Leo also was great at learning just through the phone, but I feel like for a lot of people, and me included, there's just some things you just have to learn in person, or you just have to. Um, some things you can't quite get uh, through the internet without like talking to these people and handling their work and getting some tips. I mean, that's part of the reason why I went to Australia 4 times. Is
sure.
that like, all right, I feel like I need to like see this in person and work with these people. And I think for some people, you just have to realize that like, however your interest level is, or whatever your budget is, or wherever in your life is, like maybe know that the next step is to go see it in person, and
Mm-hmm.
then and you may have to accept that all the farther you can get is online, and that's all the farther you'll ever get.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but yeah, I don't know. Aside from the interviews, I feel like the whip making community is already pretty strong as far as the Facebook groups go,
Yeah,
because I was like posting there all the time. Um, I think it's actually interesting that the posts probably for whip making and what whips you bought are more prevalent than like, all right, what whip cracking am I working on? And I sort of see that in the harmonica world as well, as that online people are much more prepared to talk about gear specifically, as opposed like what artistically are they trying to do with that gear. And then even when you do see somebody post something that is of a high artistic level with that gear, people just want to know what the gear is. They even like they don't even want to pay attention to what artistically someone did.
It's tangible.
Oh,
People
yeah.
often think, sorry, it's not my interview.
No, please, Dakota,
I mean,
spit in.
it's like
It's fine.
Dakota's. I mean, it's right. It's what
Yeah,
can you hold in your hand and look at it, be like, ooh, this is this thing I have. I have this object, and
People often think if they have the object that someone else used, they can do that thing.
yeah.
yeah, very true. You think? I think. Maybe, I don't know if you agree, but it seems like some people are more prone to post a that they have instead of being asking to be judged for what they've done. worried about peer pressure or even peer review, even if what they're doing is amazing, that
Yeah.
you can just say this is the thing instead of here is my artistic expression. Maybe a little bit of vulnerability there each time that you show your performance. Some people take that better than others. Also, all it takes is money to buy the equipment, right? You don't have to actually
Sure.
practice or anything, and everyone can relate to showing off the new fancy car or whatever. So,
Well, that gives me one thought I would say is about the stuff. Is that whether you get to a certain level in whip making or whip cracking or anything, at some point, I feel like they're all good. They're just good in different ways. Like I wouldn't put one above the other. Different. Um, and I think that sort of happens with, like, say someone that gets to a high level in whip making, if they post it, someone could be
mhm.
critical about it, but that's because they're used to seeing this other thing. What that person did is totally good. It's just the person they talk to has a specific
Sure,
taste,
sure.
and sometimes, I mean, I've seen that in Australia. Some whip makers try to bend whoever is mentoring them. They will bend their whip making to the taste of that mentor,
Mhm.
even though someone else might have a different taste for what they want to see in a
I
whip.
actually talked about that a bit with Nick this afternoon. So when you get an order and someone says they want to do target whip versus if they're wanting to do um, more Australian style cracking, um, about specifically like the interview you did with or the tutorial you did with Nick and your single belly, um, it comes out with a much softer transition and which is more akin to the style that you do so often. Not that you don't do target work, but it seems like people that like the target whips tend to like a stiffer transition. Um, do you change things up like that? Do you find that to be the case, or is it?
No, I guess I've never found that with, like, I don't really like a stiff transition in a bull whip. I feel like for me it makes it harder to tell where the whip's gonna go. Um, I sort of like a transition that breaks faster off the end of the handle, even if it's a,
Hmm.
a bull whip. Maybe because I'm just more used to stock whips. So I always feel like with targeting, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I've more broken it down to this. If all you want to do is, like, you want to whip pieces of pasta or you want to cut paper, like just about any whip you buy from a decent whip maker is going to do all those things. I guess when people says I need a targeting whip, I'd be like, no, you need to be more specific. If you just want to whip pasta, buy anything. But if you need to open a beer bottle, you want to cut a soda
Hmm.
can in half, you want to break a beer bottle, then you do need a specialized whip for that. So I find it a bit funny, and that I think with targeting, you'd only need a special whip. You say I'm doing targeting, but I also can never leave my living room. I'd be like, all right, now we've set some parameters.
Right.
Hmm?
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, like you would certainly need more weight or that sort of thing. We actually were talking about sodas with Justin the other day. I bought the really cheap off-brand soda from. I was going to start trying to do some can cutting myself, and he said that
Oh,
may
sure.
not have been a good idea. That sometimes the name brand sodas tend to cut easier. Is that true? I'm sorry, this is a side comment, but or not.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Thicker aluminum or something, maybe. We'll see.
Hmm.
But yeah, so well, I'll have to chat with some of the other whip makers and some of the other whip crackers here and see if we can come up with some ideas for some local things and see what we can do for next year. I am looking forward to what happens next year, both hopefully, fingers crossed, in-person meetup, right?
Right.
And maybe something virtual with and and we'll see where that goes. And
Oh, well, I could mention real quick if anyone wants to comment, or food for thought for the people that are listening, about, like, how I was thinking of trying to continue this, but to do it simpler. Um, so Dakota did have some good ideas initially about the prizes. Or I guess some changes I would do. One, I could be clearer with the rules of saying, like, all right, single whip, you should include some other components other than the cracking. Like, do the best cracking you can, but try to include another component with that. With the performance, now that we've sort of set a standard, we can say, like, with your performance, are you performing it? Does your video have a theme or point of view? Like Will Fitzpatrick's obviously had, like, this is a dream, like you have a concept you're executing. Um, or, uh, and also Justin Bareski's video had a theme. where like he's like doing oddball whip tricks and calls it weirdness. And obviously, Dakota's had a theme with Baby Yoda. Oh,
Well, I
Dakota's a
just want to
question.
say that it's not even a question. If your performance video is essentially the same as your freestyle video, but it doesn't have required cracks, that's not a performance video. That's just you whip cracking.
Fair enough. You're wanting a performance.
And then we did sort of right, and that was sort of probably one of the things, maybe like with Ryder Kisner's video, is that like so Ryder did like the most of anybody, and I thought Ryder did a bunch of killer tricks, especially his beginning with the horse and his ending with the fire whips. But you can sort of see in the middle where he's doing all these cool tricks. He definitely really wasn't performing them, so it wasn't really performance. He was just seeing like, what can I do? And it was all cool, but it sort of ended up being just a mishmash of tricks. And we got several videos that were performance videos where it wasn't really performed. It was just a grab bag of stuff mushed together into one video. So that's where things like cinematography, costume, execution of a concept definitely pushed those people to the top versus like, all right, here's all the stuff I can do, just quickly cut together.
Yeah, that I'm looking forward, especially with that clarification and seeing who won this year, what people can put together in the future. That I mean, I've already
Yeah.
had some fun ideas to see where things can go, and I'm looking to see, what Baby Yoda does next year. That that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
And then
Yeah,
the last thing I would say is so I did maybe go overboard on trying to get prizes for this competition, just because normally I figured any prizes that I would have tried to get from other friends of mine for this competition, like they weren't donating stuff for the live event. So I was trying to get all the stuff that might have happened for the live event to be prizes for this event. But that does kind of become a big thing of like, all right, we've got now 20 odd whips that have to be maybe shipped overseas and taken care of. So that kind of adds to sort of the operating costs of the
sure.
competition. So part of my idea was maybe one, increase. I'm trying to hold my fingers up, guys, to count. So maybe you just get a physical prize in as a first place prize, and everything else maybe is just a coupon for a whip maker that they donate. And this was this idea Dakota had early on, which I should listen to. But maybe like we do single whip freestyle, double whip freestyle. We do a beginner or a novice competition where you're beginner. If you haven't won something before, you can enter that one. And then a performance, and then we'll probably have a spirit award. And then hopefully in that case, we only have like 5 prizes that need to be mailed out, and everything else is just you get an email. Hey, you get some credit with this guy. Email them to cash in.
That's a cool idea. I do like the raffle idea. That encouraged me, even though I knew I probably wouldn't place in anything. But
Sure, that I would say that was helped a lot. Just pretty much when like I asked Torrance Fisher about prizes. Torrance like right away like here's 5 whips that you can put up for prizes, and I was like, whoa, that's way more than I thought we were going to get. And so pretty much then, even before I got many more prizes, I was like, oh, we're going to have more than we need to cover all the places. So I should totally open this up to a raffle, and hopefully, yeah, that would encourage more people to enter. So that way, your beginner, intermediate crackers not gonna like not do anything. I can't win. Well, but you could. You can. Here's something you can only win
right,
if you enter.
right. Yeah, my 8-year-old, that he feels like we won a competition, even though it was just the raffle. But he is absolutely beyond
Sure.
excited. So thank you again. That's super exciting. Shannon has one more last question here, and that is fan favorite most voted on. So I don't know if you've had a chance to poll the audience or had the most feedback from anybody. Do you think?
Yeah, I didn't really look. It,
Shannon, put that together for us. Let's find out.
yeah, it's a little bit tough. I guess in one sense, like I guess so. It's like one of my favorite videos from the competition was the one that Justin Bareski put together, just because it appeals to my like interest in the technical nature of whip cracking. But he created all these techniques to a theme, and then cut the video together. And I thought that was a really cool concept. And I thought more people would be excited about that video. Um, and then, but we did give the first place prize to Will just because his video looked so much better than everyone else's. it was like, because it was shot in a place, it was like elevated whip cracking. It wasn't
Sure.
a video where like, well, here I am in my backyard or here I am in my living room. Though Sylvia Bosco probably has the best living room of anybody for whip cracking.
Congratulations, Sylvia.
But let's see. I had a point there. But anyway, I could see that after like Will's video got out, like I thought he won and more people were watching it. Like definitely, I could tell it was the right choice to give him first place because people were going nuts
Yeah,
watching
I
the
haven't
video.
heard anybody at all disagree with the order. It's, I mean, the
Yeah.
first place were just so far and away, it seemed like. So good job, I guess. Congratulations. And we are at almost an hour and a half, and I thank you again for your time. If anyone has any other questions, y'all can post it in here in the next few seconds. But otherwise, I want to thank Adam for putting on this competition, of course, and Dakota for
Yep.
putting up with Adam. And oh no, I mean, no, it's
What did he just say?
no, I said
Adam.
Sorry, what?
I
Oh,
can't hear him.
Oh, he said thank Dakota for putting up with me. She rolled her eyes.
okay.
That's a sexist comment.
That's all I expected. But the no, thank you very much for putting on this entire thing and bringing the community together, and of course for the prizes as well. And I've enjoyed it immensely, and I look forward to seeing you next year. If I don't see you at a Renaissance Fair before that.
Yeah, hopefully the Scarborough, my next gig, the Scarborough Renaissance Festival, does have plans to open. Everyone will have to have a mask to get in, but Scarborough Renaissance Festival open in Waxahachie, Texas, weekends April and May through Memorial
That's
Day.
right. And one of those weekends I'll be there. So
Great.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Dakota. And
Yep.
you guys have a great evening. Good night.
Yep. Good night.